So presenting is all about choices, and the first choice I was faced with today was the Brown, or the Cameron, as I think they're now called, which is the Cameron Wanda or the Brown Rocksteady Lectern. I've gone for the Brown Rocksteady Lectern. I don't really think that's any indication of my political affiliation, but it's just that we need some public spending money, so I think he needs some support, our beleaguered Prime Minister. So, welcome from me to the Central Hall here. I don't know if this was a marketing ploy, but actually this was built in 1912. I don't know if anyone actually registered that, which is 100 years from where we're trying to predict where we're going to be. And it was actually built in an interesting way. 1 million Methodists gave a guinea each to build this beautiful building on the site of the old Royal Aquarium. And also on this very stage, both Mahatma Gandhi and Winston Churchill have presented. Unfortunately, they couldn't be with us today, so you're stuck with me for 15 minutes. So, what I want to talk to you about today is 2012 and what we think it's going to be like, what we think is going to be happening. And I'm going to say something to you fairly surprising, which is that I don't think we really know. And actually, I think what a lot of people are talking to you about today are what they want the future to be. Because all of the people you're hearing talking today, and myself included, are actually manufacturers of stuff which we want you to buy. But something struck me, which was that all of the devices that you saw today, and there were hundreds, I mean, I lost count. I was trying to keep up with the devices which have been shown to you today, from smartphones to EDAs to PDAs to notebooks, sub-notebooks, UMPCs, surface computing. They've all got similar things in common, which is they've got a display, they've got a form of input device, they've got a form of battery. And actually that, I believe, is really where the real technology lies, is in the ability to manufacture commercially, sensibly, and at a price everyone can afford, some of these fantastic new technologies. So a little bit about FSC, if you like. We are Europe's leading IT manufacturer. In fact, we're the last remaining manufacturer of IT technology in Europe. All of the others have moved into Asia, typically. And we have a belief in manufacturing with a sense of responsibility. So we were the first people to manufacture a green PC, green notebook, green PDA, for example. And an interesting statistic, which I wasn't planning to share with you today, but I thought might be quite interesting, is for all the millions of searches on Google, every single search conducted on Google worldwide, because Google own one of the world's largest data centers, which is what does all this searching. So every single search on Google by anyone uses up the same power as required to light an energy-efficient light bulb for 1 hour. So actually, interestingly, this isn't just about the consumer device, which is ultimately what we're talking about here. It's about doing it in a way that sustains our environment going forward. I don't know how interested in that stuff, but I've been asked to talk to you about the future. So today, as we all know, the personal computer remains the dominant platform to access internet globally. We all do that. But actually, this is being outpaced by access to the internet on typically handheld devices, phones as we would know them. In fact, in many areas of the world, access to the internet by a phone outpaces that of a PC, of a client device, as we call them. And in fact, it's predicted that 3 billion people will have a mobile phone by the end of this year, which is pretty phenomenal. So, internet browsing is growing. We all know that, but I wanted to give you some sort of insight into where it's growing and where it's not. So typically, countries like Japan and Asia have a very, very fast growth in terms of accessing the internet via these mobile devices, but actually some of the Western European countries don't. For example, UK, USA, Canada are the slowest countries in terms of adopting access to the internet via mobile phone devices. Rapid growth in the sales of notebooks, as we've all seen, In fact, they're growing at about 40% every year. So every year we sell about 40% more notebooks than we did in the previous year. Unfortunately, from my perspective, a manufacturer of PCs, that's not all goodness, because the growth of PCs from a static perspective, desktops as we know them, is slowing down. And in fact, last year, 82 million notebooks were sold worldwide and 140 million desktops. Now, those two figures are converging, and actually soon the market will see a complete domination of a mobile device. But there are still 140 million desktop PCs sold last year in the world. And there are a number of drivers for this, which we all see. So many of us now take for granted that when we go to a hotel or to a cafe or to a restaurant, that there will be some form of wireless connectivity. And I guess that used to carry a premium. It doesn't now. We expect it. And I don't think that's just an expectation of business people like me, who sadly survive on the fact that I am in contact with my office at all times, but it's by people using it for leisure activities, and those are typically, as everyone has said today, I'm not going to say anything new, those are typically young people. Wi-Fi is proven very popular in schools, in fact in business too, and in homes, and also workplaces. WiMAX is an interesting phenomenon. Again, you've heard it being spoken about today. I don't know how many of you have actually used a WiMAX network, but it's basically a very wide Wi-Fi network. In fact, Siemens were one of the first people to produce an operating WiMAX network in the UK, interestingly put on top of a hospital. So the mobile broadband revolution is here, and I think you've heard that from everyone. That won't be a surprise to you. HSDPA equipped devices are standard now, as are 3G equipped devices. In fact, now about 80% of all of our notebooks ship with 3G as standard. So that'll give you an idea of how quickly this market is moving and how many people want to be connected via their mobile device. And I think this, now, where we are today, is the real start of ubiquitous mobility as we know it, because I don't think we've had it before. So, of course, we believe that these technologies are enablers for you, me, and learners, which is a particular flavour of the conference here, and we think will be the driver for the computing of the future. So what does mobility look like? It looks like a similar device to what you're using today, we believe. It will have a screen, it will have a battery, it will have an input device. And actually the biggest restriction on manufacturing mobile devices today, because some of what we need to talk about has to be here today, is actually the battery life. So LCD screens that you use every day are very, very, very power consumptive. They use about 40% of the power of a notebook. So there are two particular manufacturing technologies, which I'm just going to touch on, which we believe will help develop some of these fantastic products which some people have shown you today, but aren't here today. And a couple of those technologies are, I think Samsung referred to it as the sort of flexible screen. What that actually is, or what that will become, and these are available now in manufacture, are actually organic displays. So they're displays made of organic matter that when they receive a charge will emit a light that they create organically. The advantage of these are twofold. They're very, very low in terms of power consumption, but also they can be made flexibly. So that will do a couple of interesting things. It will mean that a notebook will last much longer, which is actually one of the biggest restrictions of mobile computing. But also it means that they will be much more robust, and the form factor can change. So you can have folding screens, you can have extending screens. And the notebook today is constrained by its form factor. And the second thing is the development in battery life. And I know this isn't as exciting as putting up here a fantastic device from a consumer perspective, but this is what will drive this whole mobile world, the ability to have significant power consumption on the move. And we're already in Fujitsu's side looking at fuel cell technology. So believe it or not, notebook battery technology that will run on a solid or liquid fuel. Now that may sound like that's miles off, but that's actually available today. We have it in production, and we believe will be a significant technology of the future, as will conductive charging, by the way, which is products being able to receive their full charge conductively. So that's a little bit about the future, but I also want to come back to the sort of here and talk to you about how you actually make some of this stuff happen today. Because I guess a lot of you aren't looking to deploy activity in 2012, you're looking to deploy some kind of activity now. So I want to give you a very genuine story about how I got involved in mobile learning. So I'm a product guy at a manufacturer in IT, which probably isn't the most exciting thing to have on your business card. But I got involved in this via Dave Wiley. I don't know if Dave's in the room, but Dave, by accident, I think he'd be the first to admit, started using one of our standard devices in a EDA project. This was about in a learning to go project. This was about a year ago. So this is stuff that's happened. This isn't in the US, this is here, this is in Wolverhampton. And Dave called me, and I literally get hundreds of calls a year from people saying, give me some money, help me out, lend me some product, come and see me, talk to me about development. I don't quite know why, but I agreed to meet Dave in Wolverhampton, and I went to a project that he was running in some schools up there, and my eyes were truly opened. And I'm not doing a sales pitch on you. I'm just telling you how it was. My eyes were truly opened. So I went into a classroom, and I saw children using a fairly technical device in the way that it was designed to be used. They were using it to learn. They were using it in a mobile environment. It was theirs. They were taking it home. They were loving it. They were enjoying it. I remember meeting one of the girls, and she didn't want to let me take it out of her hand to see the work she was doing, because I think she thought I was going to take it away from her. And then I saw them using it in the field. I saw them using Wi-Fi, and I saw them using GPS. And it fell into place for me. I mean, I guess I saw for the first time the real future of mobility. But I want to remind you, this isn't stuff that's in the US, this isn't stuff that's 2 or 3 years out, this is stuff that's here and now. We've sold thousands and thousands of these devices now, and it gives me a real sense of purpose to know that some of the devices that we are making are being used in such a positive and effective way. And I don't need to tell you the results, because I think they've gone far and wide, but the results both in terms of learning and attendance show significant improvement from one simple device. I think we learned a lot from that. We learned that we were all early adopters in this. There isn't an out-of-the-box solution that you can buy in a shop, take into a school, take it out, plug it in, and it gives you all of the advantages of what we're talking about today. It has to be integrated into the technology, and we have had some projects which have failed, and they've failed simply because there wasn't the understanding of the integration required of technology into these environments. And we can't expect teachers who are driven by their willingness to teach, we can't have them running wireless networks in schools for mobile devices. So for sure we learnt a lot. But, and there is always a but in our game, and I guess it brings me back to how I started, about the real drive of some of the organisations who are making some of these devices. And that is that, effectively, the PDA as a platform is dead. There aren't enough of them being made, there aren't enough of them being sold. So the PDA platform as you know it today, which is a Windows mobile, non-connected phone device, is dead. I mean, you can still buy them, but they'd be increasingly expensive because the volume has simply decreased. That's nothing to do with us. That's to do with our OEM partners who make these devices, and these OEM partners have now switched to making other products, notebooks, LCD TVs, smartphones, because they all share the same. They all share the same components. So what's next? So for me, what I think is next is a computing device. Personally, I don't think in the short term it will be the smartphone device, because I don't think it's an EDA, and I don't think it's a notebook. And I believe that you need a device which is ruggedized. I think you need a device which is built with schools in mind, rather than adapted from a business product and turned into a device for schools. And I think you need a product that can be easily integrated. I may well be wrong on that, but I still have some concerns around phones with an OS, a Microsoft OS platform being used for digital learning. So I just want to talk a little bit about beyond the device as well, because we're a hardware manufacturer predominantly, and we're very aware of the bigger picture in this, which is the growing need for data and for sharing data, and the exponential growth of services that have been mentioned today, Flickr, Picasso, YouTube, etc. And one of the things we decided to do very early on was actually ship our EDA with Red Halo, which gives 5 gig of secure shared storage for learners, because we believe this is the beginning of the digital portfolio. According to Gartner now, the world has run out of storage. So now for the first time in IT, people who are actually storing stuff now are having to replace other items of storage. And for us, it's important to realize that all of this stuff requires a lot of space in which to keep it, a lot of storage in which to keep it. And that's why we're working with people like Red Halo to understand the bigger picture in the digital portfolio. So why is it important? And I think this is the thing that we all agree on, all of us who've stood up here today. Because simply put, I don't think what we do today in the boardroom or in the factory is actually the most important thing. I think what is the most important thing is that the skills required of learners today are very different to those of learners of yesterday. We are now dealing with the net-savvy generation. We are dealing with people who are very happy and very familiar living and working in a digital environment, and we need to prepare today's children for tomorrow's war on talent. So, in summary, what I'd like to conclude with is to say that the future is mobile, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I don't think it's easy to predict what that device or what that product will be, because I don't think we know yet, other than some of the component bits that I've spoken to you about. What's for sure is that devices will become faster, lighter, they'll have bigger power cells, they'll be better at what they do today, but actually the form factor of that device I don't think is clear for us to see. There are challenges ahead. The platform is unclear in terms of what's the best device to use, and there are off-the-shelf products which we can all buy, which are very easy to appease budgets and appease the need to get into mobile learning and mobile technology. But I believe that all of us, especially those of us who've been involved as developers and users, believe that for this market to really flourish, we need to adopt and understand the real market for what are some life-changing technologies. So that's the conclusion of what I wanted to talk about with you today. So thank you for your time.
Gary, that's terrific. And we're into questions, so you hang on right there. I've lost track now of where the device is. Are you holding it or are you throwing it? You chuck it on then, yep. Here it comes. Oh, excellent. That's a good throw. I'm glad I didn't buy the Frisbee now. It'd have all been...
I'm going to ask a very practical question. How much longer can you buy the EDA?
We have shipped our final units into Stelgis, who are acting as our distributor. We'll certainly be able to fulfill a backlog. We have a device which we've actually suggested that we use as an alternative. So the EDA Mark I, if you like, that we're currently shipping, we'd expect. I mean, I can see Stelgis here. I don't know if they're prepared to answer the question, but we have actually shipped units to them. I don't know what their backlog situation is. I know we've been oversubscribed, and we're looking at a Mark II version now, but it is still currently available, so far as I understand from Stelgis.
And I think that enough chaps already, really. We had an awful lot of blokes up here this afternoon, and not entirely blokes asking questions, but too many. So perhaps if you could contrive to throw that to somebody who isn't a bloke, I'd be grateful for. Yes, look around. Excellent.
Well done.
My name is Miriam Raymond from the Future Laboratory. I'm Trends Editor. Just noticed that you're talking about, when you talk about device, you're talking singular. So this is a question about convergence and whether we are going to finish up with one device.
Well, I think that part of the problem is that we're currently using today several devices, but actually they all do the same thing. So I think actually the convergence is more around the form factor. I heard someone mention earlier that they use a mobile phone and they use a BlackBerry and they use a notebook. Actually, all of those three devices do very similar things. It's just about the form factor and the functionality of using it. So today, I think that there will still be a multiple device platform. Going forward, I don't know that there will ever be a device that will have a powerful enough input device to be able to use like a credit card as a mobile phone. Certainly, I mean, I have to sort of lay my stall out. We're not a manufacturer of smartphones, we're a manufacturer of IT technology. But in terms of converged devices, I think there's still some way to go until you do everything from an IT technology perspective on one device, mainly because of the restrictions on the form factor.
That's a really nice question. I think one to watch will be Apple, because they're very clearly trying to differentiate the iPhone from the iPod Touch from whatever little portable, pocketable device they might be coming out with in the new year. And you can see they're all going to have a similar interface, but the application sets on each one, they're trying to very clearly differentiate those products. And it'll be really interesting to see if they can hold that against what's, if you read the blogs, is already a pretty heavy pressure for people to put the phone apps on the iPod and the iPod apps on the phone. I think there's a finite number of things that you carry around. What the primary one will end up being, I think, will be really interesting. And then all the other little bits and pieces interesting too.
I think that's a very interesting point. I mean, Apple, who are a great consumer brand, if you just look at their two consumer devices outside of the notebook arena, one is a phone and one is a web browser, MP3 player, video player. There is actually no reason why those devices can't be converged today, because the technology is there for that. I guess Apple have their reasons, but that's a perfect example. I mean, the new iPod Touch does have a web browser. I mean, it's not a very good web browser because it doesn't have a keyboard and it's difficult without a keyboard, but that's just a real-life example of where I think convergence could easily happen and hasn't. And I guess, I'm not Apple, but I guess that's not happened for commercial reasons. They want to keep their iPod and their phone platform separate.
I was slightly alarmed to find that my satellite navigation system offers me the option of playing videos. I can't imagine anything more terrifying than sitting there on the door, watch that. Would you care to throw that I think that's gone so well. I think at least another non-bloke would be very welcome, really. It's you, yeah. He's a bloke. Oh, okay. On it goes.
There's all these people looking very...
Have your questions ready? Oh, yeah, ask away, thanks.
Lee Wybrow, Capita. I was just interested in what you said about the organic materials and how fast you think that might come into effect, and whether that could help penetration of devices like this into developing nations.
I'll answer that in two ways. I think firstly, from a manufacturing perspective, these devices are made, so they work. But actually, as with all technologies, the problem is that there are some very, very, very large factories producing millions and millions of LCD screens today, which are cheap, which actually require some conversion over to this new technology. So in terms of the latter, do I see this technology as being a great technology for emerging markets and emerging countries? Probably not, because as with all technologies, I think the early adoption of it will be expensive and by people who are interested in the device more from a performance and an aesthetics perspective rather than a cost perspective. But the form factor changes are incredible. I mean, we show a device in Japan which has a notebook with a screen inside a jacket, actually, as a layer of fabric inside a jacket. So this isn't unique to us, by the way. These technologies are out there from all manufacturers. But I think it will certainly be here by 2012 as a viable option, that's for sure.
Gary, that's been a fab set of insights and candid and honest and useful, and as were the answers. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.